AS Level Biology 9700, Paper 1, Variant 2, February March 2026. And this is the last and third video on this paper, in which we are going to discuss question number 28 to 40. And question number 28 is, why do some mutations result in the synthesis of the same polypeptide as the original gene? The first option is ribosomes occurred mutations for a correct mutations for translation occurs. This is not correct. Why it is not correct? Because ribosomes are responsible for translating messenger RNA into a polypeptide chain. They do not possess any proofreading or repair mechanisms to correct mutations before translation. So this is not correct. B is also incorrect because the mutation basis will not be transcribed. RNA polymerases will faithfully transcribe whatever sequence is present on the DNA template strand, including any muted base. So this is incorrect. C is also incorrect. Muted exons will be removed before translation, whereas during post-transcriptional modification, splicing introns are removed while exons are joined together. So exons will not be removed. So remaining behind is the D. D is genetic code is described as degenerate. This means that multiple different DNA triplets can code for the exact same amino acid. As for example, I would like to say an example of GTT, GTT to GTC. Both triplet codes for the amino acid glutamine. So because the amino acid sequence remains completely unaltered, the identical polypeptides in synthesized. So this is known as silent mutation. We can say that. So D is the correct option. Question number 29 is there, and question number 29 is, what determines the rate of water movement from the roots to the leaves of a plant on a hot, sunny day? The option A is what transport of water through the apoplast of the endodermis. Water cannot transport through the apoplast at the endodermis because it is completely blocked by the waterproof Casparian strips. So water must move via the symplast pathway. So this option is incorrect. Now the second option is development of a less negative water potential in the leaves. Evaporation causes the water potential in the leaves to become more negative, not less negative. So this option is also incorrect. C is changes in the specific heat capacity of water in the leaves. The specific heat capacity of water is a constant physical property and does not change to regulate or determine water movement. So this is not correct. Now the D option is evaporation of water from the mesophyll cell walls. Yes. On a hot sunny day, transcription increases significantly. The driving force for the upward movement of water, which is transpiration pull, and it is initiated by the evaporation of water from the cell walls of the mesophyll cells into the intercellular spaces. So this creates a low hydrostatic pressure, water potential at the top of the plant, pulling the water column up to the xylem. So this is correct option. Now move towards the part question number 30. And question number 30 is the photomicrograph transfer section through three different types of blood vessels. All are shown at approximately the same magnification. Type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 3 is very clear. This is vein because it has thin walls and large lumen. So this is, you can say, with large lumen and thin walls, it is definitely a vein. Now, type 2. Type 2, you can see that is an elastic artery with large lumen. And you can see the smooth muscles over here. They are the smooth muscles over here. So this is the elastic artery. At number 1, you can see the small lumen. You can see this small lumen and major conducting vessels to the heart. So they have a larger lumen, high volume of blood, and a wall rich in elastic fibers to stretch and recoil. You can see the elastic fibers over here. So this is the muscular artery. They have smaller, they are highly muscular, elastic, they have with smooth muscles. So this is elastic artery, this is muscular artery, and this is vein. According to this, A, C, and D are not correct option. Only B is the correct option. These are easily recognizable due to the lumen. That this is vein, highly large lumen. This is very small lumen, and this is large lumen with muscular with you can say smooth muscles. So this can only be the elastic artery. The next question is 31. The diagram shows transfer section of parts of a plant. Transfer tissues are labeled 1 to 6. So this is leaf, and in leaf, towards the upper epidermis is xylem. Xylem, phloem. And in the stem, the towards the outer side, this is phloem. And at 4 is xylem. At 5, the star-shaped is xylem. And between the limbs of the star is phloem in root. So this is the, you can say, identification by the anatomy, stem anatomy, and leaf and root. Now they have given us the options, mainly transport water. So the function of xylem is to transport water. And function of the phylum is to mainly transport sucrose. So xylem is 1, 4, and 6. 1, 4, and 6. So they have excluded 1. So only 4 and 6 options are there. So if we go with the D. And then phloem mainly sucrose, so it can be 2 and 4, 2 and 4. So this is because 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 is xylem and 3 is phloem. So this is not correct. And in 2 and 3, 2 is phloem, which cannot conduct the water. So this is not correct. And 3 is also the phloem, which will not conduct the water. So D is the only correct option. Question number 32 is there, and question number 32 is the diagram shows a model that can be used to demonstrate mass flow in phloem. Tube 2T represents the phloem. So you can see X has the concentrated sucrose solution and Y has dilute sucrose solution, and in the beaker you can see the rigid partially permeable container. So tube T will join X and Y. So water moves in and out of the X and Y either as a result of osmosis or as a result of hydrostatic pressure. Sucrose solution then moves through the T that joins X and Y. So here I'm going with the answer. Container X contains a concentrated sucrose solution. A higher solution concentration means a lower, more negative water potential. Lower, more negative water potential. So Y contains a dilute solution. So sucrose solution means it has a higher or higher, less negative water potential. So therefore, the water potential in X compared with the Y is more negative. So we are not less negative. Option A and B are not correct options. Now, option is that is the water potential in X compared with B is more negative. So answer can be C or D. So now the direction of movement of sucrose solution. So because container X has a highly negative water potential, water moves rapidly into X from the surrounding outer container via osmosis. So since the container are rigid, this influx of water builds up a high hydrostatic pressure inside X. So the hydrostatic pressure gradient forces the sucrose solution to move by mass flow through tube T from X to Y, where the hydrostatic pressure is low. So it will move from X to Y. So according to this, C option is the correct option. Because on this side, X side, the high hydrostatic pressure. So it will move from X towards the Y through this tube T. Now, next question number 33 is, which statement about the transport of sucrose in plants is correct? So the first option is the hydrogen ion proton concentration gradient on which the transport of sucrose into companion cells depends is maintained by active transport. So proton pumps in the cell surface membrane of companion cells use ATP to actively pump hydrogen ions out into the cell wall. So this creates and maintains a proton concentration gradient that drives the secondary active co-transport of sucrose into the companion cell. So that is the reason this is the correct option. The sucrose moves through plasmodesmata by passive diffusion from mesophyll cells into the companion cells down the concentration gradient. So this is not correct. In apoplastic loading, sucrose is actively loaded into the companion cell sieve tube complex, not just by passive diffusion throughout. So this is not the correct. Now C is ATP synthesized by mitochondria in companion cells provide the energy for the active transport of sucrose from companion cells into the phloem tube sieve tube elements. This is again not correct. Why not correct? Because sucrose moves from companion cells into the phloem sieve tubes elements passively via plasmodesmata. The active transport step happens when importing sucrose into the companion cells from the apoplast. So this is not correct. Now D, water enters through companion cells by active transport causing hydrostatic pressure to build up and push sucrose into phloem sieve tube elements by mass flow. Water enters cells down water potential gradient via osmosis. So a passive process never by active transport. So it is not correct option. Only A is there, which is correct. Question number 34 is there, and question number 34 is the photomicrograph shows a human blood smear. So they have given us three labelings in which the cell wall is monocyte, monocyte. One is monocyte. And why it is monocyte? This is the largest type of white blood cell. You can see its nucleus. It features a large centric kidney bean or horseshoe-shaped nucleus and abundant cytoplasm without obvious granules. So large nucleus shows that it is a monocyte. Second is a neutrophil. How it is neutrophil? This cell is easily recognized by a distinctive multi-lobed nucleus. You can see the multi-lobed nucleus. So they are granulocytes responsible for phagocytosis. Now, third is the lymphocyte. So these cells are smaller, similar in size to a red blood cell, and are dominated by a very large, deeply staining round nucleus that leaves only a thin crescent-like rim of cytoplasm visible. You can see very small quantity of cytoplasm is there. So that is the reason this is the lymphocyte. So it matches. One is monocyte, neutrophil, and lymphocyte. So A is the correct option. Question number 35 is there, and question number 35 is which row correctly identifies properties of water that are important for its role in the transport of glucose and ions in the mammals. So highly specific heat capacity, high latent heat of vaporization, and solvent action. So first of all, uh, I would explain high specific heat capacity. While this property is vital for maintaining a stable internal body temperature, it is not directly responsible for the mechanical or chemical transport of dissolved glucose and ions. So you can see the key. Cross will show not an important property for the roles in transport of glucose and ions and not glucose and so it is cross. Next, solvent action. Water is a polar molecule, allowing it to form hydrogen bonds with other polar substance and interact electrostatically with charged particles. This enables them to dissolve completely in blood, plasma, and tissue fluid so they can be transported around the body. So this is the yes. So two, and then high specific heat capacity and latent heat of vaporization is also property essential for cooling the body via evaporation, but plays no role in internal transport of solutes. So only solvent action is directly relevant to transporting these. So two, so D is the correct option. A, B, and C. Because high specific heat capacity and high latent heat of vaporization are not an important property for its role in the transport of glucose and ions in mammal. Only solvent action is the important property for its role in the transport of glucose and ions in mammals. So D is the correct option. Now question number 36 is there, and question number 36 is, which substance will increase in concentration in the plasma and capillaries surrounding active muscle tissues? So, carbamine, hemoglobin, and again, I would like to go with over here, that is the, and the second is hydrogen carbonate ions, and third is hydrogen ions. So, hydrogen carbonate ions and hydrogen ions, they diffuses out of the active muscles into the blood. So in the capillaries, some you can say carbon dioxide reacts directly with water in the plasma, but most enters red blood cells where it is converted into carbonic acid. So the acid dissociates into hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. So the ions diffuses out into the blood plasma. So the increases in dissolved carbon dioxide and subsequent dissociation into increases the concentration of free ions, hydrogen ions in the plasma, lowering its pH. So hydrogen ions and hydrocarbon ions are there. So according to this, hydro this is not the correct option. So according to these two statements, 2D is the correct option. Active muscles tissues produces a large amount of carbon dioxide through aerobic respiration. Okay. So the first is not correct. So only 2 and 3, hydrogen carbonate ions and hydrogen ion is correct. So 2 and 3, according to this, the D is the correct option. Now, question number 37, which statement directly describes a structure of the human gas exchange system? The wall of an alveolus is only one cell thick and contains smooth muscles through law of concentration and expansion. Alveoli do not contain smooth muscles. They rely entirely on elastic fibers to recoil during respiration. So this statement is not correct. The wall of a bronchiole consists of a high layer of cartilage and a thin layer of smooth muscle. Terminal and smaller bronchioles do not contain any cartilage. So, not correct. The wall of a bronchiole has a folded inner layer of ciliated epithelium which contain many goblet cells. So, the bronchus is lined with a ciliated epithelium interspersed with goblet cells which secrete mucus to trap pathogens, and its inner layer is structurally folded. So C is the correct statement. Now D is, the wall of the trachea contains many ciliated epithelial cells and is supported with complete ring of cartilage. D is incorrect. The trachea is supported by incomplete C-shaped rings of cartilage, not complete circular rings, to allow the esophagus behind it to expand during swallowing. So this is not correct. C is the correct option in question number 38, 37. Now question number 38 is three statements about the pathogens that causes tuberculosis are listed. The pathogens can inhibit some immune responses such as phagocytosis. The statement when explain how the pathogen invades the host immune system, but it does not directly explain why the chemical antibiotic treatment itself takes so long to eliminate the population. So this is not correct statement. Second statement is the pathogen reproduce slowly. And third is the pathogen is able to become dormant within infected tissues. Statement 2 and 3 both are correct. Why they are correct? Because they explain why treatment must continue for several months because Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is this is the name of that bacteria, reproduces very slowly and can remain dormant inside lesions, tuberculosis. So in lungs, it invades standard fast-acting antibiotic action. So a prolonged course ensures that bacteria are killed as they occasionally activate and attempt to divide. So statement number 2 and 3 are correct. According to this, two is the D is the correct option. Now question number 29 is there and question number 39 is during an outbreak of severe infection disease, vulnerable people need immediate protection. Which type of immunity could provide immediate protection? uh, Active, artificial, passive, artificial, and natural. So, first of all, immediate protection to get immediate protection against a disease outbreak, a person cannot wait for their own immune system to undergo clonal section, clonal expansion, and antibody production. So, they must receive pre-formed antibody directly, which describes passive immunity. So artificial versus natural, which one be? Because the antibodies are intentionally introduced to vulnerable people as a medical intervention. So it is classified as artificial. So C is the correct option. It cannot be active. It cannot be A. So C is the correct option. Now, question number 40 is which statement describes a response of T lymphocytes when body cells are infected by virus? So, the T helper cells destroy the infected body cells by phagocytosis. So, the T lymphocytes are not phagocytes. They do not engulf and destroy pathogens via phagocytosis. So, phagocytosis is carried out by cells like macrophages or neutrophils. So this is not correct. T killer cells build to antigens on the surface of the infected body cells. So this is the correct. Because when a body cell is infected by a virus, it processes the viral proteins and presents viral fragments on its surface. So T killer cells recognize and bind to these specific antigens using their T cell receptors. And C is incorrect. T helper cells release cytotoxins that enter infected cells, resulting in cell death. T killer cells, not T helper cells, that release cytotoxins to destroy infected cells. T helper cells primarily secrete cytokines to coordinate the immune response. So D is also incorrect. So T killer cells secrete antibodies that destroy the infected body cells. So antibodies are secreted by plasma cells, which develop from beta lymphocytes, not T lymphocytes. So again, this is not correct. So only B is the correct option. So it was all about this paper. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel to watch more videos on the papers. Thanks for watching.